Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. I enjoy sewing with you. Today's block is based on this old quilt that was given to me a couple years ago from a friend who passed away. It was in her family for a long time. It's just a really simple block, and look how beautiful. Just that one block, and it's alternating with that reddish pink fabric that's falling apart. So I thought I would figure out how to make that block. I think it's called the King's Cross, and I found some patterns that were pretty big, like 12-inch blocks. I wanted mine to be smaller like this. So I went to my stash, I found some green fabric, and I started trying to figure it out. So that's what I'm sharing with you today. Let's get started. This is what we're going to need for our King's Cross quilt block. I'm starting with a 4-inch square in the middle. Here's a block that I'm in the middle of making. So for this square in the square, I need that 4-inch. And for outside the square, I need 3.5-inch squares that I will then cut in half diagonally to make my square in a square for the center. Then I'll need 4 1 3/4 by 3-inch pieces of muslin. I'm using 8 1 3/4-inch squares to make the flying geese piece in the middle here. And then we'll need 4 of our green 2 1/4-inch and 4 of the muslin 2 1/4-inch to make the half square triangles that are right here. We'll need 8 of those half square triangles. Then last of all, we need some corners, and these are 1 3/4-inch pieces of our background, our muslin. So let's get started, and first thing we're going to do is make this square in a square. Here's my 4-inch square for the center, and I pressed it. I put lines in here so that when I take my triangles, I can kind of center the point on one of those lines, because you'll have some edges here that fall off the end, and we want it to be centered, and that's just one little trick to get our triangle centered onto the square. So I'll sew triangles on both sides, and then I'll sew triangles on the top and bottom. Next, I need to make 4 flying geese units, and this is just one way to make a flying geese unit. I'm using a 3-inch by 1 3/4-inch rectangle, and then I'm going to take a 1 3/4-inch square, set that on top, and I want my triangle to go that way, so I'm going to sew right through the middle here. And if you need or want, you can draw yourself a line. I'm going to just go from corner to corner. I'm going to eyeball it. So here goes the first one. Double check that your triangle covers that whole area, and it does. So I'm going to now trim that away. So this does leave some excess. These are little excess triangles, too tiny to keep. And then I'll do another one. I'll put this on this side, and then I'll go from corner to corner, and it overlaps this triangle just a little bit, and that's what we want. Double check that your triangle covers, and it does. Trim, and there is our flying geese. And we'll make 4 of these. The last thing to make are our half square triangles. We need 8 of those using our 2 1/4-inch squares. I have 4 of each. The green and the muslin. And I can get 2 half square triangles out of each of these sets. So if I put right sides together and I draw a line or imagine a line down the middle, usually if it's small I can eyeball it. So I'm going to eyeball my line and sew on either side and then cut that in half. Now that I have all my half square triangles made, I'm going to trim them all to 1 3/4 inch. Using that diagonal line on my ruler, it goes right through the seam there, and I can make this perfectly square and get my points to end up at the right place. And they're just with a little tiny bit of waste, there you have a 1 3/4 inch square. So I'm going to do that with all 8 of my half square triangles. All right, we have all of our pieces made. We have our square and a square that should measure 5.5 inches. We have our flying geese units that are going to go around in the middle. I like to lay everything out. Then I have all my half square triangles that are going to be pointing towards each other right here in the corners. And I have my muslin squares for the corners. So after I get everything arranged, I can sit down at the sewing machine and I will sew everything together in rows, starting with that top row. Then I will probably sew these 3 units together, and then the bottom row, and then put all the rows together. We're almost there. It's going to be a beautiful block. So let's sew it all together. Here's our block. It should measure 8 inches. And I went digging around in my stash and I found these pretty fabrics. I want kind of a creamy background with some red to alternate with that block. I think it's going to make a great red and green quilt, maybe even a Christmas quilt, but not necessarily Christmas. Just that red and green is such a classic, and I'm going to have fun putting this quilt together. So thank you for sewing with me today.